He was co-founder of the modern-day Conservative Party. He served as the Foreign Affairs Minister. He served as not only the Attorney General, but also the Justice Minister. He was not just the Defense Minister, but also the longest-serving Defense Minister during wartime, during the war in Afghanistan.
Merci, Stéphanie.
Thank you, Stephanie. So it's a real pleasure today to introduce to you a gentleman that I admire, the co-founder of the Conservative Party of Canada, a former Foreign Affairs Minister, former Justice Minister and Attorney General of Canada, and also he was National Defence Minister for 6 years during the war in Afghanistan. So he's the longest-running Defence Minister in a time of war. So it's a real pleasure to introduce to you my friend, the Honourable Peter MacKay.
Merci, Pierre.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Stephanie.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here in this wonderful historic city of Quebec. And it's a great pleasure to be here with my Conservative family.
At this great Canadian Common Sense Convention in Quebec. In fact, we're glad to be anywhere. You know, after a pandemic, a move across the country, 3 kids, it's great to be anywhere. It's 10 years since we were away from our kids together. We're thinking of them, of course. And you know, I would share with you that politics prepared me for parenting. Think about it. Late-night filibusters and arguments, screaming and yelling and accusations that have nothing to do with you, and always cleaning up somebody else's mess. Just like Ottawa. You see, I'm an older dad. I ran into Stockwell Day yesterday, and he was telling me he was just at his granddaughter's wedding. I have a daughter in grade 3, so I got a long way to go. I've been to a lot of Conservative conventions over my lifetime, but I must say I have never been at a gathering where there was so much optimism, so much purpose, and so much confidence. And I look at what's happening in Ottawa. Yeah. There's no more powerful message than the message of change. There's a message of change in the country. We look at what's been happening in Ottawa. You know, it kind of reminds me of ChatGPT. Right? Because you get the same robotic and inane answers no matter what you ask. There's such great energy here in the hall today, and I know that there's a lot of important work to be done. But, you know, we have over 30,000 people here. I'm just kidding. It's actually closer to 3,000, but that's liberal math for you, right? Right? It's just inflation. Remember that? Just inflation, just transition. When will he just go away? You know, we've had some powerful, inspiring speakers already, and that presentation in particular yesterday from Michel and Barbara Muzinov I found compelling. An incredible speech, uplifting, on the money. I saw them yesterday in the hotel, and what I told them was that they would both be great candidates. Well, now speaking of candidates, I know there's been a lot of speculation. There's been a lot of talk about candidates across the country. I've run into people everywhere lately and since I've been here. And, you know, I feel this incredible sense of pride and purpose that I had when I was in politics some years ago. And so I've been thinking a lot about my future and discussing this with my wife, Nazanin, and family and friends back in Central Nova. And so I figured there's no better place than here with all of you to let you in on a little secret. I believe Pierre Poilievre will be the next Prime Minister of Canada. Canada, it is time. It's time to turn the page. It's time to undo the damage that the current Liberal government has inflicted on Canadians now for the past 8 years. It's time for new leadership and a new government that actually puts people first. It's time, Canada, for a Conservative government led by Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre.
It is time to say no to the Liberal toxic interference and to say no to their authoritarian and partisan methods. On the other hand, it's time to say yes to new ideas and to say yes to choices that are going to respect your rights and your dignity. It is time to have new leadership in our country, and it's time to say yes to Pierre Poilievre as the Prime Minister of Canada.
No mistake, my friends, we have an enormous task before us. The debt clock has never run so fast. Our military have never been so poorly equipped and unrespected. Our image around the world more tarnished and ridiculed, with a Prime Minister known for his socks and selfies more than his seriousness. And he's there again. I hope he's not dressing up. You know, a home has never been more unaffordable. People from all parts of Canada are seeing how this Liberal ideology has divided our citizens and our country, all intended, of course, for the preservation and promotion of the Liberal Party of Canada. We need to right the ship of state that is badly listening to the left. We must correct course to financial responsibility, fiscal accountability, honest government. Canadians deserve and demand no less. And Pierre Poilievre is ready to deliver the change that Canadians seek. With hard-working and dedicated members of his team, many whom are here, and with Conservatives right across the country, I have every confidence that Pierre can do what Conservatives have done for our country throughout our history, and that's build a more prosperous Canada, a more secure Canada, and a more united Canada. But in order to do that, and if you remember nothing else that I've said here today, in order to build a united Canada, we must remain united as a Conservative Party. And you know, I honestly feel that Canadians are still getting to know Pierre. They're getting to know him with each passing day. And in opposition, they see him as a fierce critic. They see him as somebody who offers common sense, of course, and somebody who has real solutions in store for Canadians. As a leader, they see a man filled with optimism and ideas, a leader who wants to make life better and more affordable for Canadians. And what makes me so optimistic standing here today, in spite of all of the challenges before our country and our party? As I think about the history of the Conservative Party and movement, even going back well before my time in the Conservative Party, as we have seen, Conservatives can capture the imagination and the interest of Canadians, but never have I seen in my lifetime our party capturing the imagination and appealing to so many young Canadians in Canada. And of course, that means people of all ages, people who are getting up there, like myself. But despite what the pundits and the press might say, Pierre is connecting with young Canadians. I met Esther and her sister Catherine, who are here from West Nova in Chris D'Entremont's riding. She's here for her first convention and spending her 19th birthday in Quebec. Pierre is connecting with people because he's talking about their hopes and their dreams for the future, and their future in Canada. about owning a home, about a well-paying job, about not having to worry about buying groceries or heating a home or apartment or the cost of education. These are real life concerns. And Pierre is talking to young people in a way that we have not seen. How many here are attending their first convention? Just give me a show of hands. Outstanding. Outstanding. This is the audience participation part of my remarks. How many flew here? You're paying carbon tax. How many drove here? Also paying carbon tax. How many walked? Pierre Paulus, I know, walked. He marched, in fact. If you bought a coffee on the way, you're paying carbon tax. We all know the answer to that riddle. And so did every other Canadian when they, on July 1st, saw the carbon tax imposed for the first time. And there's more coming. Let's not forget, this is hammering Canadians where they work, where they live, and where they raise their families. And so, there's no policy better that shows how out of touch with Canadians this Liberal government really is than this hated Trudeau carbon tax. This tax is particularly punitive, as we know, in rural parts of the country. In Atlantic Canada, where I'm from, people have no choice but to drive their vehicles to work in factories, in fields, in places of work. They have no choice. They don't have public transit. They don't have alternative energy sources in many cases in rural parts of the country. So it is again a divisive and punishing policy that has been imposed on the country. The carbon tax increases the cost of everything, but particularly on the horizon in a cold Canadian winter is the cost of home heating fuel, of propane, of natural gas. Now, I, for one, coming from Atlantic Canada, sure wish we had an Energy East pipeline right now bringing good Canadian, safe, ethical oil to Atlantic Canada to export to the world. And you know the most ludicrous thing about this carbon tax is it doesn't lower emissions. As Pierre has said many times, it's just a tax. It's just another tax. And to be clear, Pierre Poilievre is not trying to impress pundits or Davos elites. He thinks every day about what he can do to better the lives of Canadians in every corner of Canada. He and Anna understand the struggles of everyday Canadians. Ordinary people, who he says correctly are not ordinary in any way. They're extraordinary. And speaking of extraordinary, I have to give a shout out to our extraordinary first responders, fire, police, military, paramedics, pilots who have been fighting fires and floods throughout our country. Those are real Canadian heroes. Comme le général a dit hier.
And as the General said yesterday evening,
as they throw themselves in harm's way to protect our citizens. But coming back to what I believe Pierre believes every day when he wakes up as Prime Minister in the near future, he's thinking about how to get interest rates down and wages up and how to make things more affordable generally. He won't be fixated, as the current Prime Minister is, on making apologies on behalf of Canadians, talking down our history, looking for a scapegoat to blame, deflect, and distract the incompetence of his own government and the problems that are right in front of us. Pierre is not a leader of symbolic gestures. He knows that real results are what Canadians are looking for most. Pierre believes in equality of opportunity and the rights and responsibilities of individuals, and that extensive, expensive, ineffective, and wasteful government programs are not the answer to every problem. We all remember when that strike, you remember the public service strike that happened at the beginning of the summer? And do you know what happened? Nothing. Nobody noticed. It wasn't easier or harder to get a passport. You couldn't get somebody on the line in a government office. And so there's something wrong, as Pierre says. There's something broken that needs to be fixed. And you know, government is not the answer for every problem. I'm reminded of a quote by another great Conservative leader, the Right Honourable Robert Stanfield. Rob will certainly remember this. He said, "There is only so much that good government can do for a country, but there is no limit to how much harm bad government can do to a country." Truer words have never been spoken. Pierre knows and believes that imposing punitive taxes on citizens and small business takes away the incentive to work, or grow a business, or employ more Canadians, or expand. The best social program, as another great Conservative, my friend and yours, Jim Flaherty, used to say, there is no greater program than a job. It brings dignity and income and purpose to people's lives. Now, unlike those other guys in the alliance, the NDP Liberal Alliance, Pierre believes in the rule of law, in individual freedoms and free speech, accountability and transparency. He believes in protecting the right to freedom of worship and assembly and association, as well as the right to peaceful protest. Peaceful protest. He will work, yes. And he will work with Canadians, not insult them. He will show up and show compassion and listen to those who are struggling.
He will unite Canadians. Quebecers are authentic people, and they really like common sense. No one will be surprised if I tell you that Justin Trudeau is completely out of touch with Quebecers and Canadians. And as we say so well in French, he has lost his bearings. Literally in French, the compass has lost its north. He's out to lunch. What Quebecers are going to discover about Pierre Poilievre is the fact that he's a leader that understands the middle class, a leader with whom they actually share the same values of authenticity, common sense, and he's really connected with the reality of Quebecers and Canadians. That is why Pierre Poilievre must become the Prime Minister of Canada.
You know, the Canadian Forces, of course, hold a special place in my heart, as it does for all Canadians. And Pierre believes very strongly in our national defence. And, of course, making smart investments in equipment and in training, as we did when we were in government. We invested in large procurement projects that impacted as well on the military, but also on the communities where that equipment is produced. There is no better example than here in Quebec, at the Lévis shipyard, where they produced the CS Asterix, the joint support ship for the Navy. And guess what? In good Conservative fashion, it was built on time, on budget, and it's supplying the Canadian Navy right now. Pierre, of course, also believes in honoring veterans who served and protected us. He believes that our natural environment is a vital part of our heritage, which is a lifeline to the economy, to health and well-being. These are not just Pierre's values, but those that are shared by thousands, millions of Canadians across the country, and the thousands who are in this hall. Like you, Canadians want and crave and can't wait for a change in government. Like you, Pierre is fed up with the Liberals, who've been spending recklessly, treating the rule of law with contempt, taxing everything that moves, undercutting the provinces, weakening our military, pitting Canadians against Canadians. It is truly time for change in Canada. Now, I'm particularly filled with optimism today because, under Pierre Poilievre's leadership, our party will have the unity, as I mentioned, that's necessary to gain the confidence of Canadians in every region of the country. And I promise you this, to my friends ici au Québec,
For my friends here in Quebec and in the West and Ontario,
you are going to see a lot of blue seats coming out of Atlantic Canada. The blue wave starts there. La victoire.
victory is at our door. It's within reach, but we have to work even harder. We have to be united behind our leader. We have to deploy the same effort and the same passion in all corners of the country, in each city and village and in the regional regions throughout the country here in Quebec City, and we also have to convince people from Trois-Rivières, Lac-Saint-Jean, Chicoutimi, Gaspé, Sherbrooke, and yes, in Montreal as well, and all the different corners of Quebec. It's necessary for everyone to rally behind Pierre Poilievre and give back to Canada its pride, its hope, and the leadership that it's lost since the election of Justin Trudeau. 39 years ago, on the 4th of September 1984, under the leadership of Brian Mulroney, the Conservatives obtained a historic majority with a delegation of not less than 58 MPs from Quebec. Together, united, we can do that again.
As my time comes to a close, our winning formula is right in front of us. And that's rallying behind Pierre, building the strong team, building on the strong team that we have today, and in Parliament, and recruiting exceptional candidates in every riding, many who are in this hall. It's hard work, but putting forth compelling ideas that connect not just with the elites or special interests or narrow ideology, but compete with everyday hard-working Canadians who are looking for a better life for themselves and for their children. We've cleaned up Liberal messes before, and we'll do it again. But more than that, let's never forget as a party, as a movement, who brought this country together. Macdonald et Cartier, who forged this nation through war. Robert Borden, who spoke of one Canada and had a vision for the North. John Diefenbaker, who is Canada's greenest Prime Minister and stood against apartheid in South Africa. The Right Honourable Brian Mulroney. And who, most recently, led the world in recovery from 2008 in a global economic recession, the worst since the Great Depression, and got our books back to balance, and stared down Vladimir Putin over his illegal invasion of Crimea in 2014, and led the world to kick Russia out of the G8. The Right Honourable Stephen Harper. All strong Canadian Conservative Prime Ministers. And you know, over successive Conservative governments, we've opened markets for Canadian goods and services around the world, especially for our natural resources. We are the party that built infrastructure to deliver these natural resources like energy, minerals, and food safely and efficiently to global markets. We are the party of small business, of families, of public safety, of immigrants seeking new opportunities on our shores, of visionary policies like free trade and a robust system of justice. It was a Conservative government that tabled the first Bill of Rights. It was a Conservative government, I'm reminded, that tabled the Victims' Bill of Rights, a long overdue reform that protects the innocent, not the criminal. Sure. N'oubliez pas.
And don't forget, it's also our party, when we form government, that recognize that Quebecers are a nation within Canada, a distinct nation within Canada. And it's also important to underline that it's our party that recognised and gave the right to vote to women and Indigenous peoples. The Conservative Party has always been an agent for positive change within Canada. More than ever, Canada really needs a Conservative government and a Prime Minister such as Pierre Poilievre.
Now, these are not projects or policies unto themselves, but they uphold the values and the principles that Conservatives have carried with us throughout our history. Like Poilievre, I am a proud Canadian Conservative, a pragmatic Conservative, and a compassionate Conservative. Pierre knows the value of hard work, being careful with the dollar, standing up for what is just and people in need, honoring those who keep our country free, showing respect for others, and helping the most vulnerable. With Anna by his side and his two children, Cruz and Valentina, as his inspiration, Pierre Poilievre is grounded by a mission to make life better for Canadians, where homes are affordable, jobs are plentiful, and the country is united and secure. We need to get behind his ideas, demonstrate the same love of country and core values that will meet this moment and ensure that Canadians' best days are truly yet to come. Nous allons travailler.
We are going to work together, hand in hand, so that you are heard and that we listen to you in the light of all of these challenges waiting for us.
Leader, we will continue to come together as a party like never before, certain of who we are, certain of what we want to accomplish together, and certain of who we serve. Let's all work together to secure a safer, brighter future for all Canadians and finally fulfill what we know is Canada's destiny and potential. Merci à tous. Merci Québec. Bon.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Quebec. Have a wonderful convention.
And safe home.